Hello, I'm DBJ, and welcome to Eclipse Phase Friday. Um, if you're unfamiliar with the role-playing game Eclipse Phase, just take a look at the recent um, uh, offering from Netflix called Altered Carbon. That could tell you just about everything about Eclipse Phase. Eclipse Phase is transhumanist horror. And of course, in these videos, I will also be talking about some aspects of other science fiction games that you can use. But specifically, I'm such a fan of transhuman themes. And so Eclipse Phase Fridays is my ode to science fiction and such. So if you are um, into more traditional medieval-ish role-playing games, I apologize for that. You don't have to watch this video, but maybe you might gain some elements from it. So let's get into it. Eclipse Phase, if you have been a fan of the recent television show Altered Carbon, one of the main things about transhumanism is that technology has met our wants, our needs, and even our dreams, making the time, energy, and resources to match what we want and what we need available to just about everyone. And one of those things is that death is no longer an option. You can live forever. And to that end, people have something called a cortical stack in the base of their brain and spine, right, probably in the back. Often, although maybe in your game, that cortical stack might be centered in their chest or in the base of their spine. But whatever the case may be, this cortical stack is like a DVR for the soul. It is constantly recording any and all of the person's sensory input and even their emotional connections, all their skills, all their experiences. And if that person dies, that cortical stack can be removed. A neutrino broadcaster can be attached to it if you are a special agent, and you could have your very essence beamed somewhere, or someone can collect your cortical stack and re-sleeve it into another biological or mechanical or a pod-grown body. All right, so now we've gotten that out the way. Let's get into some specifics. So the point of this Eclipse Phase Friday and for other science fiction games is to delve into something that is close to my heart, and that is the environment. Sometimes the environment can really change, really shape, really make an encounter memorable. So today we're going to talk about zero gravity or microgravity. Not going to go too deep into the woods. I am a self-appointed third pillarist. The first pillar being combat, second pillar being social encounters, the third pillar being the environment. And as a self-appointed third pillarist, that means that I don't really have the skills to know everything. So what we will go to into what I want to say the woods is that deep into the woods is that microgravity means that instead of calling it zero gravity, means that there's always gravity of some sort affecting all objects in space. But for practical reasons, player characters will just consider it zero gravity. The reason why it's called microgravity is that over time, let's say a player character or an important object or device is lost in zero G, it will be pulled, attracted, altered in course by the gravity of other celestial objects. Now, that altered course might take tens of thousands of years, which in a role-playing setting, that really doesn't matter much. But within a space station or something, an object will not just drift motionless, untouched by anything. At some point, it will connect with another physical object. Why is that important in a role-playing game? Well, we want to have fights, we want to have combat, we want to have stunts, all kinds of things. So here we go with zero gravity encounters. One encounter is to have zero gravity on the outside of a starcraft, spaceship, space station, a habitat, all right, because that can build tension. So, of course, if your player characters are in spacesuits, they have to launch themselves from one space station to another. They have to, they are pirates or other space pirates are attacking them, and they need to eject themselves from one location to another. You can really ramp up the tension. Okay. So here's how you do it. You have everyone, maybe they have cables, they have magnetic boots, they have some way of holding on to the vessels. Establish the chances that a cable can be broken, that magnetic boots can be uplifted, that the damage they suffer from some kind of forceful attack, whether they're getting punched or they get shot with a particle beam rifle, will dislodge themselves off into space. Now, what you can do is establish a time factor, because time factors are what are the things that are going to really, really push the tension. A time factor can be from 1 to 3 rounds. You in Eclipse phase, they use percentile D10. You could roll a D10 and use that as the number of rounds they have an opportunity to call for help, to grab onto an object. Or conversely, it could be the 1 rounds or 2 rounds of combat or 3 rounds of combat before that player character then has the option to grab hold of or magnetically attach themselves or use a cable to lasso themselves to another solid object. For example, if you're on a spindle habitat, which is like a imagine yourself, I've got an ink pen, imagine yourself, this is the center portion of the habitat, and then there is a circular ring around it. Maybe if they launch themselves from the tip towards the circular ring, they have like 1d10 rounds to reach the ring. During that time, maybe they are targets from, laser beams or particle beams. They are they could possibly be grabbed by mechanical arms controlled by enemies. The player characters themselves could use debris blown out of an airlock and use that to bounce off of. All these kind of things. All right. Now, bringing up the idea of debris is another thing that can really complicate the situation and therefore change the dynamics of the combat encounter. So let's assume you have a spacecraft or a habitat in 0G, and there is floating debris. Maybe it was blasted by a smart rocket, or normally the space station has gravity, but the gravity was disrupted and turned to zero gravity, so objects start moving around. You can roll a die. I like to even the odds. So in other words, an even result is what you want. So the player characters want to roll a die and get an even result. If they get an odd result, there's possible harm may befall them. So before the round starts, have everybody make a roll, including your NPCs, because this can really change the combat. Everybody who gets an odd result has to divide their attention or spend an action or make a fray or dexterity roll or something to avoid being impacted by spinning, falling, drifting, hyper forced debris being pushed by someone else, right? So now you have, for example, in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, you have like bonus actions. Well, if that bonus action is absorbed by having to divide your attention between your enemy with your mono vibro blade, and the enemy's got an electric power staff, and now there's a giant boulder sharp metal hull, a fragment from the structure of the habitat, or a big giant container filled with freeze dried ice cream. That could be awesome. Of course, come up with some kind of like blunt trauma, impact trauma, or something like that, some damage result, or just have it create a condition. They get hit and stunned, spun around, moved out of position, that kind of thing. Also, with zero gravity, imagine a fight. Two futuristic samurai facing each other with their swords, and they find a solid surface, get that potential energy in their knees, and then they launch off at each other, flying, flashing past each other, taking a swing. Maybe they get one swing. Maybe if they're really good, they get a second swing on their way away. They spin around, bounce off another solid surface, and come at each other again. That would be sweet to watch. Zero G combat, I just imagine in so many ways. You could have zero G sword fights where they're bouncing against across from each other. Zero G jiu-jitsu, of course, where you start grappling and using the momentum of your body and their body to spin and twist the person so that their limbs and joints crack and break. You can also have zero G, I would call it zero G Tai Chi or Aikido, where you use their momentum in zero G to spin and throw them. Of course, that very related to jiu-jitsu, where you spin and throw them and then quickly snap back in the other position so that you can break a wrist or a shoulder or dislocate a knee. Also, the idea of you don't really need to do quote unquote drain them of all their hit points if you can get them spinning off into the sunset, right? You kick them off of a space station, the enemy's done. Maybe they might have a weapon in their hand. Maybe they get off a few rounds, but sorry about rubbing my face. Anyway, zero gravity, great element to add into any science fiction game, Eclipse phase or not. Now, Eclipse phase is centered mainly around our solar system. We have habitats in the solar system and most of the major planets. Also, asteroids, whether they're hollowed out and spun for gravity, or the people that live there have morphs, biological bodies that are adapted to zero gravity. And of course, there's people who have decided to ignore humanistic living and live in complete zero G. Of course, they have calcium hacks, so their bodies aren't thin and their hearts still beat correctly. And it would kind of suck in a role-playing game if you live in zero G, but you suffer through all these debilitating results of living in zero G that would happen in real life. We don't need to do all that. We're playing a role-playing game, so we want the action, we want the cinema, we want the drama and the tension, and zero G can really get that. Now, remember, in zero G habitats, you are not limited on a flat plane, so you can have tunnels and curves and things that work in 3 dimensions, where player characters can make sharp turns left, right, up, down, sideways, all based on their orientation and the orientation of enemies. Enemies can come directly from them from below, above, and to the side. You can do imagine holding up a 6-sided die or a cube. You can have 6 potential dimensions in general for a role-playing game from attacks coming at them, and player characters may need to adjust for that instead of working on a flat plane. So finding cover in zero G may be not just ducking behind cover, but you might have to watch out for cover below you and above you and your sides and behind you as well. So anyway, this is just an introduction video to Eclipse Phase Fridays, which I'm going to do. This is this is my own personal project. I love science fiction. I love science fiction games, and I especially love Eclipse Phase. Now, I will have to add to this. I'm not really a fan of the Eclipse Phase rules, but I own like 6 of the Dead Tree books. I own the books. The background, the setting is so much worth it that the rules don't really bother me. They do have a second edition coming out, which simplifies the rules. You can download the simplified rules on their website. They also have over 30 pre-gens that you can alter yourself. So, and the pre-gens cover quite a wide gamut, so you can use that as well. And there's also the transhuman book for building characters, and the building of the characters, you pick skills and archetypes, and they have a random generated life tree system. So there are resources if you just buy the original or acquire the original Eclipse Phase rule book, and you're just like daunted by the rules, like, oh man, there's no way. So there's a lot of energy to use with the base rules in character preparation, but after that it's pretty easy. It's percentile system. Use modifiers from plus 10, 20, and 30 to minus 10, 20, and 30 percent. You want to roll low, your skill or below. When you're challenging someone else, you want to roll as high as you can without going over your skill, and you absolutely want to roll doubles that are within your skill or as low as possible. Double zero in this game is literally 0, which is what you want. It is not 100. The highest roll you can get is 99, which is always a failure. Well, anyway, I'm DBJ. I'm your self-appointed third pillarist. If you're into more of a medieval gaming, go to the links below. So go over to Drive Through RPG. It's got all the things that we are into over there that we've produced. My baby is the cinematic environs that talks about the environment. And join us over at Facebook at Critical Hit Publishing. Be glad to talk to you, whatever. And of course, if you're watching this, you're on my YouTube channel. So thank you very much for your patronage, guys. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, comment below, whatever. When I can, I'll talk to you. My Muggle job takes up a lot of hours, so I read every single comment. I'm just not able to respond like I can or what I can. I get a kick out of hearing everything. So, by the way, thanks for being a friend, and thanks for getting some ideas. I hope I can spark something in you, and look forward to doing more Eclipse Phase Friday videos.